Welcome to IELTS Easy. Speaking 3. Planning an impromptu speech. Speaking on a topic without a lot of preparation time is difficult. This lesson will teach you techniques for effective impromptu speaking, with a special emphasis on speaking part 2.
Here are goals for this lesson. Take some time to carefully read them, and when you're ready, I'd like to start by reviewing the format of speaking. Part 2. As I covered earlier, for Part 2 of your test you will be handed a candidate card, which will list the topic and all the points you must cover in your speech. On the screen you'll see an example of a candidate card containing a sample topic. In addition to the card, you'll be given a pencil and piece of paper on which to take notes. The pencil and notepaper are very important, as you will see later on in this lesson. Once you've been given the topic card, you have 60 seconds to prepare your speech. After that, you'll need to speak for 1 to 2 minutes. The topic you'll be given won't be difficult to speak about, and should be something that you should easily be able to relate to. Very importantly, the topic you are given in this section and the subject matter you choose to talk about will be the basis for the third and final part of the speaking exam. So obviously, your planning and delivery of the Part 2 speech is going to have a great bearing on your overall speaking result. Now, as I've said many times before, those that do better in academic tests approach them in a consistent and systematic way. This is certainly true for Part 2 of the test. Students, you may not have heard the term impromptu before. Impromptu means unplanned or unrehearsed. Impromptu speaking is when you are called on to speak with little or no time to prepare what you're going to say. Part 2 of the IELTS speaking test is an impromptu speech, because you're given a topic and have very little time to prepare before you must start speaking. Even students with strong English skills can have a problem in this part of the test, because they have a difficult time giving an unplanned speech. After all, you have a very limited time to prepare, and it's difficult to speak fluently without preparation. You may also be nervous. Impromptu speaking is a challenge in any language, and requires practice. Now you may think that you can't prepare for this part of the test, because you don't know what the subject will be. That's true, but you are given 1 minute to prepare, and you can take notes during this time. My experience has proven that using your notepaper to write down a brief outline or structure of what you will talk about will result in a more fluent and confident delivery. So, in the remainder of this lesson, I'm going to outline a 4-step approach to preparing for and delivering your Part 2 speech. A systematic approach will definitely deliver better results. Students, you must practice using the 1-minute preparation time efficiently. As soon as you're given the candidate card, you must quickly decide on your subject matter. This is step 1. Your subject matter is what you choose to talk about. It's very important that you make a quick decision on what you'll talk about, because you only have 60 seconds before you must start speaking. Firstly, get an overview of the question by quickly reading all the points listed on the candidate card. Then, return to the first sentence and focus your attention on it. It will usually ask you to describe or talk about a particular topic. In choosing your subject matter, usually the first idea that comes to mind will be the best idea. Remember, you're not going to be judged on whether your content is right or wrong. It's how you speak which is important. So don't waste valuable time trying to decide what you'll talk about. Make up your mind within a few seconds of reading the card. Once you choose your subject matter, write it at the top of your notepaper. Let's say after focusing on the example question in front of you, you decide that your favorite activity is football. You then write, "Favorite activity, football," on top of your notepaper. Once you have your subject matter, step 2 is to outline the structure of your speech on the notepaper. The goal is to be able to deliver your speech by only referring to your notes. When you re-speaking, you do not want to have to refer to both the candidate card and your notes. That might be confusing. Now, the outline of your speech is given to you on the candidate card. So the planning for most of your speech is really quite easy. On the card will be words like, "You should say," and below that will be listed the points to include in your speech. For example, Using the sample candidate card on the screen. You're asked to describe a favorite activity you did when you were younger. Notice on this card there are 4 points which you need to mention. The points are: what the activity is, when you first became interested in the activity, why you like this activity, and explain how it has influenced your life. It's important that you include each of these 4 points in your speech. Outlining the structure of your speech on the notepaper is not hard and should only take a matter of seconds. It's something that you should practice over and over until you can do it very quickly. On the notepaper you'll need to create an outline of the speech by writing a number and section heading for each of the required points. Our goal is to create useful speaking notes that you can use to deliver your speech. On your notepaper, under the heading you wrote previously, quickly create an outline of your speech by writing down a number corresponding to each of the points you need to mention. In the example, and in the test, there are 4 points that need to be mentioned. Leave enough room for notes on each point. Then, next to each number write an abbreviated section heading. This will remind you of what you must talk about in each section, and will again save you having to refer to the candidate card. When giving your speech, look at the example on the screen and see how I've done this for the sample question. Notice how I've written brief section headings that remind me of what I need to cover in each point. Remember, keep your points spread out down the page so that you have room for further notes. The whole process up to now should have taken very little time, leaving the bulk of your 1 minute to fill in your speech content. Step 3 is where you plan your speech content. In other words, planning what you're going to cover in each of the speech points. With practice, this is something you can learn to do very quickly. Starting with point 1, think about what you're asked to say and what you might cover regarding that point. Then write down key words which will prompt you later as you speak. You must be creative here and go beyond just answering the question in a couple of words. Think about what is being asked and how you might expand on the question. Think of your own personal experience. Think of adjectives which describe the topic. For example, in the first point of the sample question you're asked to define what the activity is. Now I could say, "My subject is football," and leave it at that. But that would be a poor way to start my speech. Instead, a better way to start would be to say something like, "I would like to talk about the exciting and fast-moving game of football. It's a game that's played by 2 teams. And it's popular in my hometown and all over my country." Write down key words to remind you of these points. You'll have about 10 to 15 seconds on each speech point. Here are the notes that I wrote under each of the speech points. These notes should be brief, just enough to remind you of the key points you wish to talk about. Remember, there's no right or wrong answer here. As long as you stay within the topic, it'll be fine. So be creative. If you can't think of anything to say, then make it up. Think of something a friend might have said, or something you might have seen on television, and talk about that. The examiner is interested in how well you speak, not so much on whether the information you give is real or imagined. Now it does take practice to prepare and speak from brief notes. But it's not that hard, especially when you know your subject. So practice this skill with a friend. Step: the 4th may not be necessary if you're a good impromptu speaker. The notes you've taken may be enough to cover the required 1 to 2 minutes of speaking. However, if you're nervous you may cover all your speech points too quickly and run out of things to say before the time is up. Or the topic may be a difficult one for you, and you may not know what to talk about. Now with practice this should not happen. But in case it does, it's important that you keep speaking. Here's a 4th preparation step that you can apply to effectively expand upon your last speech point, to fill the required time, without appearing to the examiner that you've run out of information. It is simple, and involves using one of 2 techniques. The first technique is called past, present, future. Past, present, future is a pattern which you can apply to almost any topic. By asking, "What happened in the past? What is happening now? And what could happen in the future?" This system provides a structured way to talk intelligently about a subject. The other technique is called advantages, disadvantages. It's not hard to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of a topic. Now you'll have to practice using these techniques. But they are excellent ways of giving you additional material for a speech topic. As I said, You won't need these if your notes take you to the time limit. However, if you do run short in your speech, you can apply one of these patterns to the last point on your outline. It will provide a template for you to continue talking on the topic. Here's what you do. At the end of your preparation time, you should make a choice as to which of the two techniques work best for the topic. Then write either past, present, future, or advantages, disadvantages under the last point on your notes. If you don't have time to write out the words, then just write ppf or AD as a reminder. In my experience, one of these two techniques will work for any topic, so you can clearly understand how to use these techniques in the test. Let's look at the past, present, future pattern. Imagine that you've given your speech and covered your required 4 points. But you've done so too quickly and can't think of any more to say. Immediately think of past, present, future, and apply it to the last point on your outline. Remember, in the last point of the example question, where I chose to talk about football, we had to explain how the activity has influenced your life. Applying this pattern, we could talk about how football has influenced me in the past, how it's influencing me now, and how it might influence me in the future. For example, the past could include your childhood experiences, or what special football games you played or watched in the past, or maybe how your country achieved some championships. You could even talk about great past players of the game, and how they influenced you. In the present, you could talk about your current interest in the game, how your team is going this season, or maybe the status of your country in the current World Cup, and how you're influenced by these things today. Finally, you could move on to the future, and talk about your future hopes with regard to the sport. Maybe the goals you are aiming for, or how football might influence your children, or maybe hopes for your national team. There are many ideas you could apply here. I've just given you some examples. The benefit of applying past, present, future is that it gives you a structured and logical flow to your speech point. I suggest you practice this technique with friends. Have your friend give you a subject, and start talking immediately on that subject, using past, present, future. It's fun to come up with ideas. And it's good practice for impromptu speaking. The other technique I suggest practicing is advantages, disadvantages. It's similar to past, present, future in application, but it may work better in some situations. Consider again the football activity example. The last question asks us to talk about how football has influences me. Think of how it has influenced you in a positive way, and in a negative way. For example, the advantages of football as an activity might be that it made me physically strong and fit. Or it may have brought my family together. Or it might have given me pride in my hometown or country because of international players. Achievements. You could talk about all or any of these advantages. From the other perspective, you can always talk about the disadvantages or negative aspects. For example, you could talk about physical injuries that football may cause, or how football was a distraction from school work. You could talk about how your team's loss caused discouragement, or how a visiting team caused a riot in your city. Advantages, disadvantages is an excellent pattern to apply in many situations. Again, practice this technique with your friends. Have them give you a topic, and immediately see if you can talk fluently about the advantages and disadvantages of the subject. I suggest, in making your choice between past, present, future, or advantages, disadvantages, that you do so right at the end of your 1-minute planning time. Read the last point of your notes, and ask yourself, which of the two techniques applies better? Make a quick note of the one that fits best at the bottom of your notes. If you do need to expand on your last point because of time, you'll be able to do so smoothly and fluently. We've covered some very important information in this lesson, which may be the key to the higher band score you seek. Practice the information given to you in this lesson over and over again. Practice writing your impromptu speech outlines quickly, under test conditions. Allow yourself only 1 minute of preparation time. Practice speaking from summary notes. Well-written notes with key words are invaluable in helping you to give a good speech and deliver it fluently. Remember, past, present, future, and advantages, disadvantages, and practice them over and over. You will find them to be an invaluable aid when you need to expand and add structure to a speech. Finally, make sure you review and apply all of the principles that you have learned. in the other speaking lessons. Remember that the final part of the speaking test, Part 3, is a two-way discussion on the same topic as Part 2. So if you outline your Part 2 speech well, and deliver it confidently, you'll find that Part 3 of speaking is much easier. Well done! You have now completed this lesson. Before move on to the next lesson, make sure you fully understand the lesson above. I recommend you to review from the beginning. See you in the next lesson.